It could mean that he's doubling down on his priorities of the wall and ending chain migration and other the things that he promised his base. Or it could be, sitting down with, as he calls them, Chuck and Nancy and trying to be the negotiator and the deal maker. But is the water too muddy now to begin this bipartisan era that the president is calling for in 2018?
Well, first, Victor, I have no idea what full Trump is. I thought we were seeing that. I can't imagine that there's much more. But in any event, the water here is pretty muddy. The things that the president has done, the things that he has said, his overuse, bizarre at times, of Twitter and other social media, is going to make it very difficult in an election year, in a midterm cycle, as was pointed out, for him to suddenly now, kumbaya with the senator, minority leader, and in the Senate and in the House. And so I don't know what he's talking about, but it's going to be very competitive, as Andre talked about. But Democrats are fired up. We know what we need to do. We demonstrated that certainly in Alabama, and there are a number of other locations where having the right candidate, well supported, going after both traditional voters and bringing some back home is going to be a great year for Democrats in 2018.
Mr. Mayor, let me stay with you. And on legislation, let's go to infrastructure. The president says that be a bipartisan effort. But I want to read something this week that one of the president's policy advisors on this specifically said that part of what we want to do with our incentive program is say, listen, if you are, as a state or local elected official, are willing to create a new revenue stream for infrastructure, we as the federal government want to partner with you in doing that. For cash-strapped municipalities that are already struggling, now to create this new revenue stream to try to attract federal dollars, what does that mean to a city that needs the money to rebuild roads and infrastructure?
Sure. Well, the translation there, Victor, is that the federal government is trying to offload costs that they would normally pick up onto local governments, possibly states. All that really is the potential raising of taxes. These municipalities access the bond market for much of their infrastructure and really can't, in many instances, borrow more. That's why the federal government and using federal resources, especially for infrastructure and transportation projects, is so critically important. And all they are trying to do is shift all of those costs back over to local governments who can't afford them.
So, Andre, how do you pay for this? I mean, some of the available pay-fors were used in the tax reform bill, and now when it comes to infrastructure, initially it was a $1 trillion plan. We're hearing $200 billion of federal investments, trying to get a partnership from some private entities for the additional monies. How do you pay for this?
Victor, number one, I think it's a good thing when you say, hey, state, city, other governments, you got to come to the table. Look, in South Carolina, we are a poor rural state. We're a donor state as well. We pay for other rich states for their tax, for their road systems. But when we wanted to build a bridge, we brought the county together, the city together, the state together, and the federal government together because it was a big project. And we all worked together in unison because we thought it was that important. When cities, counties, municipality doesn't want to at least bring something to the table and say, hey, we're willing to work with you, federal government. In other words, we're just saying, hey, federal government, give us all you can give us, but we're not willing to put any of our own tax dollars to match you. That's not a partnership. That's not working together. And that's what we're going to have to do. Is get creative, fund all these things.
Come on, Andre.
Let's talk about something real here. Andre, let's talk about something real here because, hold on.
The cure-all.
Let me ask you this, Andre. I hear you, but let me ask you this. One of the options here that the president said he will certainly consider is increasing the gas tax. It's about 18.5 cents per gallon right now. Hasn't been increased in 25 years. I think the last time was 1993. Some Republicans are pushing back against that. Do you think that that's an option? It should be a viable option to pay for this infrastructure investment to raise the gas tax?
It's a viable option. I don't support it. I don't support raising taxes. I try to find a way to use the current revenue stream we have and use it more effectively and efficiently. But I still believe.
Where was that argument during the tax cut debate?
I was again. I'm not for raising taxes, period.
No, but
So
using the resources we have to pay for it when the JCT, the Joint Commission on Taxation, says that the tax bill will, even dynamically scored, will add $1 trillion to the deficit over 10 years.
Look at the robust economy now. Look at the stock market right now. Look at unemployment right now. I know y'all don't like to factor that in, but what we have is a growth in the economy, a growth in the job market, jobs coming back to this country, and all that offsets it. I've never seen so many budget hawks in all my life. When Obama was giving out phones, Flash for clunkers, continue to give away and raise $8 trillion. Now all of a sudden $1 trillion, that really isn't going to happen. Everybody is so alarmed by it. It's amazing to me that when we want to give taxpayers their money back, everybody is so concerned. But when we give out free telephones to folks, nobody cares.
Mr. Mayor?
Andre, you must have forgotten called the Great Recession that was going on that President Obama walked into. Let me finish. Let me finish. I'm not getting distracted by phones. There was this Great Recession thing, and the president, within a month, started to rescue the country from going into an even deeper recession. And so, you know, you're not for raising taxes. Okay, fine. You're talking about using current resources. The level of investment that's needed for deteriorating bridges and roads, there's no way in the world that any local government and even states by themselves can cover the amount of devastation to our national infrastructure system. And whether you're a contributor state or Pennsylvania is or whatever, you ride or a family member may ride on our roads, I might ride on yours. It's a national transportation network that we use to get people and goods and services moving all across the United States of America. The problem at times with Republicans is you love infrastructure, you just don't want to pay for it.
So, Michael, let me ask you the question I asked Andre here. Do you support increasing the gas tax to help pay for infrastructure spending?
I think it's a viable source of revenue, but, I mean, you shouldn't just look at one source. This is, again, should be a national discussion. There'll be states where maybe that's okay, or they've got their additional local taxes on the gas tax. But I think, Victor, as you pointed out, it hasn't been raised in 25 years or so. It certainly should be looked at as one component of a larger strategy to not just shift costs over to cities and states, but this is a part of the responsibility of a national government. It's a national network. It should be looked at by the national government with a variety of funding sources. And, Andre, with every respect to you, you know that there is virtually no project that gets done without a combination of local, state, and federal funding. The South Street Bridge here in Philadelphia, 80% funded by the feds, 15% by the state of Pennsylvania, 5% by the city of Philadelphia. It is a fantastic example of great partnership about infrastructure.
Let's talk about DACA, another issue the president has tweeted about this week, and he said through tweets that Democrats have been told and fully understand that there can be no DACA without the desperately needed wall. Of course, DACA, he's speaking about the protections for about 800,000 undocumented peoples here, this deferred action on childhood arrivals, no fault of their own, they're brought here. We know that Jeff Flake, senator who voted for the tax cut bill, said that he secured assurances from both Senate leadership and the White House to work with him to, as he wrote, enact fair and permanent protections for DACA recipients. Do you expect, first to Andre, that there will be a deal on DACA by the deadline the president has set?
I don't know, Victor. I think it's important to him to deliver what so many of Americans wanted, and that is a separation between two countries that stops or substantially reduces the amount of folks coming into a country, which a lot of countries do. People do that with their front door when they lock it. And so I think this is part of his deal. Look, you got to give me the wall or I'm not going to play ball. And I think that's fair and reasonable because he got elected, and that was one of the big promises he made to the American people.
The polls show that the prospect of the wall is very unpopular. Mr. Mayor, Michael, let me come to you. The Skype situation is difficult to hear, but let me ask you this question. The president says there's no DACA protections without the wall. Should Democrats take that deal? Funding for the wall if they get DACA protections?
Victor, first of all, that's an ignorant proposition. The one has nothing to do with the other. These are folks who are already here. Again, as you highlighted when you led into this, children who came, whether they had a choice or not, most didn't because children usually go where their parents go. They're here. They're not going anywhere. It has nothing to do with. And by the way, there is already a wall in a variety of places between the United States and Mexico. This is Donald Trump, again, just throwing out the red meat to his constituency and conflating two issues that have nothing to do with each other.